Hello and welcome to my review of the Death Guard Foetid Bloat-drone. I was told in a previous video that it's pronounced Foetid. I've gone on the pronunciation and things like that, and yeah, it is Foetid. So I do apologise if that's triggered people, but it's a fantasy universe. The names are completely made up, so you must forgive me if I do get them wrong the first or second time round, I suppose. Anyway, let's get on to the review. One of these models will cost you £30. It's a fair bit of money. I would have liked to have seen it be sort of £25 or so. It is kind of land speeder size. Yeah, I would have expected to be about £25. Do I think it's overpriced at 30? Well, not really. For what it does and all the parts and options that you get with it, I think it's about right. Yeah, it's 2 sprues. I'm talking about the model itself to build. Very easy, very straightforward to build. You've got one of 3 different options. You can have the blight launcher, which I've gone for. You can get the one with the 2 plague spitters, or you can go with a flesh mower. Now, my model from the Dark Imperium has already got the plague spitters, and I didn't really want another Bloat-drone to have the same sort of weapon loadout. As good as the plague spitters are, I wanted it to have a completely different weapon configuration. If I get a third one, I probably will, because they look pretty cool in 3. I would go for the flesh mower, hands down. So that's kind of like my reasoning behind that. Yeah, so quite a straightforward, simple model to build. The only issues you'll have is sort of the mold lines on these spikes, you know, in between all the spikes and on the rotors. But everything else is quite straightforward to clean up and to glue. It's glued through these wiring cables, and I really like that. I wish Games Workshop did more of that, because it doesn't wobble too much, and it gives it a nice base, and it sort of blends in with the model and gives that appearance. I'd much rather have a model that is attached to the base via its own sort of parts than one of those silly sort of clear stands. I just think it blends in more to the model and what it's doing. In terms of the detail, yeah, it's chocked full of detail. So this is a faceplate I've gone for with these smokes, and I know a lot of people don't really like the smokes and the flies and things, but again, I didn't really want the bones or the flies that that my other one has, and I do like these 3 sort of brass sort of speakers or vents or whatever you want to call them. That's sort of the look I've gone for. But yeah, quite a straightforward build. Probably only take you an hour or so, if that. I've gone for the blight launcher. Well, it's a heavy blight launcher. I think it does quite well, range-wise and damage-wise. So there you go. What I'll do is I'll just do some size comparisons. So I showed you next to the Dark Imperium one. Here it is next to like a small sort of Space Marine or mini Marine. So it definitely towers above a normal sort of Space Marine. Next to a Primaris. Yeah, the Primaris does look quite big next to it though. And then probably next to Typhus. Typhus probably goes up to maybe its nozzle, probably its eye lens. But base-wise, yeah, it's a bigger base and things. It is a bigger model overall. So hopefully that helps. The spare parts, yeah, you get quite a lot of spare parts. Look at these. Just bring them over. Yeah, so you get the different face plates. I did really like the one with the teeth. I think that was quite cool, but I didn't use that. You know, that one, that would have been quite nice to use with this horn. But again, it had all the bones and the flies. I didn't really want that on this one, so you could have chosen that one. The plague spitters, the different wiring and nozzles with the probe, I think that's called, and then the parts for the flesh mower. The flesh mower is quite short. I still think it's quite short even in real life. I think it should be a bit wider, probably at least as wide as the model, but as it stands, it's just as, you know, and they're basically saying that this flesh mower can have what, about 6 more attacks or something. So yeah, you're getting a lot of attacks, and I just don't see it happening when your Space Marine is probably covering the width of the flesh mower itself. I just don't see it happening, but maybe it's trying to portray that these blades are hitting models, you know, a certain number of times, which is probably the case. So yeah, quite a few spare parts. You get, you know, these spikes and things, which, you know, there's no reason you can't add those onto tanks, like the Plague Burst Crawler and things, add more spikes to it. You get the flesh mower sort of arms to attach it with, and then you get some spikes, very sort of Mechanicum type spikes, claws and things. So yeah, you get a fair few parts there. So now what I'll do is I'll just talk to you about the rules. Okay, so rules wise, you'll find them in the fast attack option in the codex for a power level of 8. The characteristics do change as he suffers damage, unfortunately. If he's got 6 to 10 plus remaining wounds, his movement is 10 inches, strength 6, attacks 3. Remaining wounds of 3 to 5, it's a movement of 8 inches, strength 5 and attacks 2. And then when he's only got 1 to 2 wounds, his movement is 6 inches, his strength is 4 and his attack is 1. His weapon skill, ballistic skill of 4 plus, which is a bit odd. I would have liked 3 plus for both of those. His toughness is 7 though, and he does have 10 wounds. 10 wounds is pretty decent. His leadership is 8 and his save is 3 plus. He's equipped with 2 plague spitters and a plague probe. You can replace both the plague spitters with a heavy blight launcher, which I have, or a flesh mower. Now the plague spitter is like your flamer, basically. It's a short range, 9 inches, assault d6, strength user AP -1 and a damage 1. It's also a plague weapon and it automatically hits its target. So if you're really lucky and you get 2 6s, you've got 12 shots there that are instantly hitting at a strength of 6 with your full wounds. You can swap those out with the heavy blight launcher, which is a range 36 inches. It's assault 6, so you're guaranteed those 6 shots at a much further range. Its strength is 6, rather than it being affected by the number of wounds it loses. Its armor penetration is -2, which again is better, and its damage is 3. And on top of that, it's also a plague weapon. So that's one of the reasons why I've gone for it. A bit of long range. A lot of my Death Guard army will have range 36 inches, if I can help it. And then finally the flesh mower, which is purely melee weapon. Strength is +2, so at full wounds you're looking at strength 8, AP -2, could be AP 3, that'd be better though. Damage 2, so you're guaranteed that damage 2, and it's a plague weapon. And also each time a Foetid Bloat-drone fights, it can make 6 additional attacks with this weapon every time it fights. So you're then looking at 9 attacks, 10 on the charge. The plague probe, which it would have as well as any of those weapons, is a strength user, AP -2, so it's the same AP -2 as the flesh mower. The damage is 3, and it's also a plague weapon. The abilities, it's got disgusting and resilient, so it's ignoring on the 5 plus. Demonic, so it's got a 5 plus invulnerable, so a 3 plus normal on a toughness 7 with ignores on 5 plus, and it's got that 5 plus invulnerable, which is great. And finally, it's got this putrid explosion, where if it's reduced to 0 wounds, roll a d6 before removing it from the battlefield, and on a 4 plus, so 50-50 chance, each unit within 7 inches suffers 1 mortal wound. So each unit, that's pretty good too. Yeah, I think it's a very decent model. I would love to do a comparison for it with the Mythic Blight Hauler, I really would. Because the Mythic Blight Hauler has its 5 plus invulnerable, has disgusting and resilient, has a 3 plus save, has the same toughness, has a couple of wounds less. It has the same movement, but its movement is never affected as it loses wounds, which is great. For it to be the same speed as well and be a 3-tracked kind of little tank. It's one of the reasons why it's my favourite unit, but there we go. Where would you use this? Well, you could use this to sort of, you know, with that blight launcher, you've got an effective range there of 46 inches. You know, moving 10, firing the heavy blight launcher, you 6 shots with your damage 3, and then the next turn you could just move him about. So the movement 10 inches is great, especially with this sort of heavy weapon sort of platform. With this plague spitter, you really got to be moving him around buildings and around cover where you can, and getting him into close range of that 9 inches. And again, with the flesh mower, you've got to be even more sneaky and try and get him to your enemy's front line, because he can't deep strike, he can't fly in, no meteoric descent or anything like that. So he's going to be on the battlefield pretty much from the start. So you really need to be really clever with his movement, you know, from the very start of the battle. Otherwise, you're looking at 8 power points being taken. Speaking of which, the points for this model, he's 99 points. The plague splitters are 17, so that's 34. So is that 111 points? I think it is. That's not too bad, 100 points or so for one of these models. With the heavy blight launcher, it's a little bit more. You're looking at 112, and with the flesh mower, it's the cheapest option. you're looking at 89 points. And also you've got to add your 25 points for your plague probe on top of all those. So you're actually looking at 136 points or so for the Plague Spitter version. So 136 points. Yeah, I suppose it's probably just worth it, but yeah, like I say, you really got to play him safe. There's only one configuration there where you'll need to have him out in the open, and that's with the heavy blight launcher, firing off those 6 shots, you know, into the enemy just to wear them down. But he's got his invulnerable save, he's got his 3+, he's got his toughness 7, and he's got his disgustingly resilient. So he's going to be a bit of a thorn in your enemy's side, and it's a model that they're definitely going to have to keep a close eye on, especially if it's armoured like a Flesh Mower or Plague Spitters. It's going to be a bit of a priority to take out, but they're going to be using up a lot of shots to try and take it down. And that's all I really wanted to say about the Foetid Bloat-drone. What do you think of the model? What do you think of the rules? Please do put it in the comments below. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. The Emperor protects.